ABC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, good evening, depending where you are in this glorious world. I hope everybody's having a great week. Welcome to the Water Zone. We appreciate you tuning in. I'm Rob Starr, along with my very esteemed colleague, Mr. Chris Davey. Chris, how are you doing today?
Great today, Rob. Thank you very much. Right back at you, by the way. And listen, man, I know you've been busy this week. You've been traveling. You made a trip out here to Southern California, but you just missed the rainstorm. I mean, we got a whopper here, buddy. Something that's pretty unusual for the 1st of June. Thunder, lightning. Pea-sized hail. Just one or two of them in a teaspoon. It was crazy. You missed the tail end of that, or maybe you caught a bit of it.
No, we caught one going through on Tuesday. It was pretty hairy, and on the freeway, you turn your wipers up as fast as they can go, and you still can't see. But it was coming down really hard, and then it drizzled a little yesterday morning, and then cleared out. So it was a good trip, and we're back, and got a lot of things accomplished. I went by the Wyland Foundation, who we partner with, and had a good conversation on some upcoming activities that we're going to be doing with them. So it was good. Anyway, and we also have Miss Chris Austin, who is the purveyor of Maven's Notebook, as always. Chris, how are you today up in Central California?
Hey, we're doing pretty good up here. It's been dry and kind of hot. We had some of the hottest days of the year up here in the North Sacramento Valley. So, but yeah, sure heard about the rain and thunder down in Southern California. Some of that tropical moisture making it up there. But yeah, we're up here and we've got full reservoirs. So I think people are kind of getting excited for summer. Shasta Lake is full. Lake Oroville is so full they're going to probably have to release some water. So, we're ready for summer up here in the North State.
I noticed coming back from coming into Arizona, there were some people standing in the Colorado River. It's still very low up in that area by where it switches over to California.
Oh, the Colorado River is really in dire straits. Their runoff. At one point they had a really good snowpack in the beginning of the season, and everyone was very hopeful about that. But as the season progressed, that snowpack dwindled away. And also, it's my understanding that, the soil moisture deficit issue that hit California a few years ago is kind of played a role there, where the soil is so dry that when the rain hits the soil, it absorbs some of it for itself, which generally doesn't happen in a good snow melt. So a hot drought preceding, and then you get the soil will take what it needs back. You don't get to control that. So I heard runoff as low as 46% of normal, which is very, very low. And going into reservoirs that are already very low.
Well, let's give us some of the Google what's happening with water in California.
Actually,
Chris, why don't you talk? Give us the background on the love-hate romantic relationship with San Diego and the state water.
Yes, Metropolitan Water District and San Diego County Water Authority have had a long-standing feud. Now, Metropolitan Water District is a wholesaler of water, and San Diego County Water Authority is also a wholesale of water, but in San Diego only. And San Diego County Water Authority is a member agency of Metropolitan. So Metropolitan distributes the imported water to San Diego. And back in the drought, back in, I think it was the 1994 drought, it got very, very dry here, and Metropolitan had to ration water to the agencies for the first time, and San Diego really got hit hard with, very little water coming in, and I mean, draconian almost, I think, and it was very impactful to them. And so when they got through to the other side, and they said never again. So San Diego then went out. They said, we're just too dependent on you, Metropolitan, so we're going to go carve our own path. And that's why they have a desalination plant. And they went in and in the middle of all these agreements in 2003, larger agreements with the Colorado River called the QSA, which was sort of settling how much water in the lower basin between all of the states. And San Diego was in there, and they got a cut of water dedicated to them, and that water would come from San Diego County Water Authority paying for certain upgrades in the Imperial Valley to save that water. And then this is something that they've done a lot here in California. So San Diego paid to have these canals lined, and this was a 5-10 year type project to get done. But the Imperial Valley had a lot of earth canals, so they lined a bunch of those canals, and they also lined the All-American Canal, which is the major canal that brings all the water in to the Imperial Valley. And this was back, I must have been maybe 2012. The All-American Canal cut through a very sandy area, and it was a very, very leaky canal. And we knew that it was a leaky canal, but that water that left the canal in the ground was replenishing groundwater basins for Mexican farmers on the other side of the border. But San Diego and the whole QSA, which was all about reducing California's use of water, they said, nope, the water is too important to us. And so they lined the All-American Canal with cement, and that conserved water was also, I think, transferred to San Diego County. Now, in order to get that water, San Diego had to use Metropolitan's infrastructure because they don't have a pipeline that takes that water into San Diego. And herein lies where a lot of the dispute for the last few years has lied. They thought that Metropolitan rate was too high. They disagreed with it, and they've been lobbying lawsuits at each other for, I would say, over a decade. I can't remember when it started, and it might have, maybe even it started before I came on the scene. So anyways, they finally agreed, excuse me, on a price that for the water, and they've agreed to drop all their lawsuits, and there's some other provisions in here that makes it a little helpful for San Diego. They'll be able to sell some of their water to other metropolitan agencies if they need to, and that's kind of a cost mitigation thing for San Diego because, in that process of San Diego saying never again, they went out and they had to pay to have all these irrigation canals lined so they could have that water, so that's expensive. They built a desalination plant that creates some very expensive water, and they're actually having some difficulties like selling all that water because it's kind of expensive. They're talking about maybe they'll sell some of their desal water to other places in the area. So, that's why San Diego's water rates are so incredibly high, and they're also implementing recycled water, and I think they're trying to go for direct potable reuse, which is another very expensive investment in infrastructure. So, and this is actually causing, I mean, it's great that they have settled the lawsuit with Metropolitan, but it's also causing a lot of problems in San Diego, just among the agencies, because the water is getting so very expensive that these agencies are starting to, the natives are getting restless, shall we say, and they're even talking about breaking up the San Diego County Water Authority. So, reliability is great, but it can really cost a lot of money, and that's therein lies the rub, I guess.
Well, it's been going on for years and years and years, and maybe if they're going to be nice to each other, they had a big lawsuit going a while back, and that took a couple of years to go through. So it's pretty sad.
Think about how much the lawyers made.
Yes, that's true. So you got to go. What else do you see as something that's pretty newsworthy?
Well, let's see. They're calling, Restore the Delta's calling for a legislative audit of any money that might have been spent, any public money that might have been spent on the Delta Tunnel project. I think they called for another audit a few years ago, which was done. So we'll see what has happened, but they submitted a request. We'll see what's going to happen with this project. It's really coming down to the line, next year, when Newsom leaves office, if this project isn't finished up, it's very unclear what will happen. If it's still working its way through approvals, it may not happen. So we'll see what happens.
It's had pretty good support over the years from governors, at least. Chris, do you think the next governor is going to continue to, push for the Delta Tunnel?
Well, it'd be hard to say, because it really depends. And we've had, Schwarzenegger was a Republican, and he was supportive of it, and then we had, Brown, he obviously, and now Newsom, but this is not a popular project. Otherwise, it would have been built already. I mean, there's a lot of resistance, and depending on where that governor comes from, it's probably going to shape his feelings on this. And wouldn't necessarily be out of the question that they may decide to want to kill it altogether. But I don't know, without knowing who that is, it's hard to say. But the range could be pretty wide on what could happen there.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Chris, we got to take a quick commercial break, and we do appreciate you coming on every single week and giving us the update on behind the scenes of what's happening and your viewpoint, and that's important. Our listeners really enjoy that. We get a lot of messages about that. So, if you really want to know more about California water and what's going on, and you can really know, as I said, behind the scenes, go to mavensnotebook.com. It's a great read every day. Both Chris Davey and I get the issues every single morning when we turn on our PCs, and it's great. And gives us a lot more insight to some of the guests that we have on the show. And you can go to mavensnotebook.com and become a subscriber, or if you'd like, you can become a sponsor of that. She works, I don't know how many hours. I don't think there's enough hours in a week that she can not work. But it's amazing stuff that comes out every single day, and it's incredible. So we kind of wish everybody to do that. Go check it out and see what we're talking about. So Chris, we thank you very much, and I hope you stay. Do you want water or do you want to drive where you are? How do you want this coming now?
I just want it to be cool.
Well,
it can be dry, just cool.
Okay, we wish that on you. All right, well, you have a good week, and we'll talk to you next week, and you have a good day.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Have a great week, Chris.
Take a little break, and we'll be back with some special guests that we have. And so stick around. It's going to be a great conversation. Something about produced water. And for those of you who've been sticking around for the last couple months and listening to the series that we've been doing, you're going to really enjoy this one. So we'll be back.
Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
One of the most time-saving tools I found for my customers is our app and our e-commerce feature. So customers actually have the ability to view all of their quotes in one place. If you contact your SiteOne seller, you'll be able to log into your account and see all your quotes in one place. And instead of jumping on the phone or waiting for your seller to call you back, you can approve it right from the website, and it will send a message to your sales rep to get it on order and reserve the material. Customers can learn more about these tools at their SiteOne branch, from their local seller, from their local CX specialist, and from SiteOne.com, or by downloading the SiteOne app.
Welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone Show. I'm Rob Starr with Mr. Chris Davey, and we got some awesome guests. As most of you who've been listening and following the show for the last couple of months, we've been doing a series on produced water. And the gentleman that we bring in to host that is an awesome guy. When I grow up, I want to be just like him. His name is Mike Hightower. He's director of New Mexico Produced Water Consortium. And he has a guest he's bringing on named Jonas Armstrong, who's the director of New Mexico Environment Department's of Water Protection Division and serves as the department's director of strategic initiatives. And prior to joining that, he served as an attorney for the New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission, working with planning programs and others. He's worked with the Public Regulation Committee, where he analyzed and advised the commission on legal and policy issues, and with the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, where he served as general counsel to the Albuquerque Police Department and provided legal service to the Economic Development Department. And Jonas began his career in New Mexico's Legislative Finance Committee, analyzing natural resource agency budgets, operations, proposed legislations, and infrastructure projects. Jonas received his undergraduate and JD, which is Juris Doctorate, degrees from the University of New Mexico. So welcome both of you. Mike, I'll turn it over to you for the interim.
Oh, thank you very much, Rob. It's good to talk to you again. You had asked a few months ago if we could talk about a new initiative within the state of New Mexico called the Strategic Water Supply Initiative, which is an activity that had been proposed through our most recent 50-year water planning effort that Jonas was involved with and actually led parts of it. And he has led the efforts on the strategic water supply. And I think it's important to highlight that a state like New Mexico, that's in the Southwest, and has issues with fresh surface water, fresh groundwater, climate impacts on that, to take the initiative and develop a strategic water supply program that they're going to implement over the next 50 years. To look at the use of non-traditional waters, brackish water, produced water, industrial wastewaters, municipal wastewaters, and include that now in our long-term 50-year water plan. So a lot of people have been talking about it. A lot of people have been bringing up these non-traditional waters. US EPA has a program called the Water Reuse Action Plan that started in 2020 that's trying to encourage states to develop strategies for the use of these non-traditional waters. And, New Mexico is maybe one of the first states that actually has a long-term, large-scale plan to move forward on that. Jonas managed that for the state of New Mexico, was the lead on that. And so I've asked him to come in and talk to your listeners about how that was done, some of the things that went through, and now that part of that legislation has been passed this past legislative session, and we're moving forward with that strategic water supply, maybe he can talk about how that's going to try and impact water issues in the state of New Mexico in a positive way. So, Jonas, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, and then I'll let Rob and Chris ask questions, and then we'll have time for the audience to ask questions from you. Okay?
Sounds very well. Wow, Mike, thanks, Mike. Thanks for that great introduction. I really appreciate it. In the background you've given so far, you gave me a lot of credit there. I'm just one part of New Mexico's really passionate water community and have followed in the footsteps of and worked along with a lot of those really thoughtful and intelligent folks to get to where we are. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham has been focused on water issues since the very start of her administration. She is very aware that New Mexico is among the states, if not the state, with the most immediate and pressing water needs. Folks might not know, but New Mexico actually has the least percentage of area of the state of surface water. We're really reliant on groundwater and declining surface water supplies. As part of her focus on water issues in New Mexico and our need to get more resilient, Governor Lujan Grisham organized a Leap Ahead report back in 2022, where our foremost climate and water experts looked at what New Mexico is going to look like in the next 50 years. And it's a stark reality that we expect to have 25% less water in the next 50 years, both surface and groundwater. That's due to the impacts of less precipitation, but really largely more aridification from increasing temperatures. So following that Leap Ahead analysis, the governor organized a policy and infrastructure task force on water issues that released a report in December 2022. Among that report was the recommendation that we look for new water sources. Building on that, the governor announced in late 2023 the Strategic Water Supply proposal, which is a way for New Mexico to take advantage of existing water resources that otherwise aren't being put to use. We've got a lot of brackish water in New Mexico. We've also got a lot of produced water in New Mexico, and we want to look creatively towards any potential source to help us in our future. The Strategic Water Supply announcement was followed with a bill that we introduced during our 2024 legislative session. Like many states, our legislative sessions are not year-round. In even-numbered years, they are just 30 days, actually. So we didn't get a bill passed during the 2024 legislative session, but that didn't stop us from continuing to work with communities across New Mexico, industry representatives, and elected officials in the legislature to keep pushing forward the idea of the strategic water supply. That looked like outreach to interim legislative committees that meet across the state between the months when the legislature is not in session that looked like issuing a request for information for community groups and industry and others to give us information on what they knew about alternative water supplies and sources and treatment methods and pathways and opportunities for uses. We held a conference at New Mexico State University with Mike's help and his team's help back in July of 2024. We also prepared a feasibility study at the end of 2024, kind of bringing together all the information we had gathered over a multi-year process to find out how and what we can do to put alternative water supplies to use in New Mexico. Again, we highlighted the scarcity projections that I talked about earlier, 25% less water in the next 50 years. We talked about the availability of brackish water and produced water as abundant sources that with treatment could help address our scarcity going forward. We talked about the industrial and economic development applications that are available for water needs in New Mexico going forward. And we talked about the public-private partnership opportunities that are obviously presented for these water sources. So we did a lot of work throughout 2024. We then introduced a bill during the 2025 legislative session, House Bill 137, the Strategic Water Supply Act, that advanced these ideas. That bill started with inclusive of both brackish water projects and produced water projects throughout the process, which was a long one. It's a 60-day legislative session in odd-numbered years, including 2025. So we went through 5 different committees. We went through full votes, obviously, in the House and the Senate, and made a lot of changes along the way because it's a collaborative process, and we understand that not everybody's open to everything that we had put on the table initially. So the bill that we eventually got passed through the legislative session was limited to brackish water treatment projects. And it allows 2 different state agencies in New Mexico, the Environment Department and the Office of the State Engineer, the agencies that regulate both water quality and water quantity, to work with public entities or private entities to develop brackish water projects to advance community needs, including economic development goals in New Mexico. So right now, we have that statutory framework in place. We also have a fund that bill created, the Strategic Water Supply Fund, that will be managed by the agencies together, where we will use $40 million that the legislature appropriated to advance brackish water projects. We have, like I said, resources across the state in terms of brackish water aquifers. We are also working with the Bureau of Geology at New Mexico Tech. That's our university, our technical university in New Mexico, world-class institution in terms of petroleum engineering and the other technical fields. We are working with them to do some aquifer mapping across the state. They received $7.5 million to do that research work. And Mike and his team also received $4 million to support strategic water supply projects. So the legislature and the governor are bought in on the strategic water supply, putting their money forward, $50 million to get these projects moving. And we are now working with the Office of the State Engineer to do just that, identifying pilot projects in different communities around the state for near-term goals, and also developing a program long-term that the state can continue to invest in and potentially expand in the future in terms of what sources we are putting to use. So it's an exciting time in New Mexico in terms of what we're doing with the strategic water supply and how we are trying to be thoughtful and creative about addressing our long-term water needs. Really appreciate you all inviting us on the show today to talk about those things.
Well, welcome, Jonas, to the show again. This is Rob Starr and Chris Davey on the other end. We're excited to have you on. Couple questions. I'm glad you. Some of the questions I was going to ask you already answered with your opening here.
Yeah.
But
Jump right in.
No. We love that. We love that. Let me just start off with one question. So, make sure I understand. So today there is a regulation that for anybody going to do fracking, I assume, that they have to add produced water to the system. I'll call it that way. And then, if that's true, how does it connect to the public after that? Because some of these places may not be close to a populated area, or do they have to be? I mean, it would probably be easier if it was, but what happens in those instances?
What's happening right now with produced water in New Mexico is that it is reused as much as possible in oil and gas production, to refrac wells, to drill wells. But then when it can't be used anymore, it's going to deep water injection wells. And those are often, not terribly close to population centers. But right now, that's what's happening with produced water in New Mexico.
I assume that the treatment for this, from what I learned from Mike and the people that we've had on the show from him, it's not a simple couple dollars to make that happen. And so the companies that are coming in to do this, predominantly, I guess, in the petroleum industry, I would assume they have big dollars to do. And what do you consider a large entity or a large project of drilling? 1 drill, 10 drills? What are they looking for? I mean, what's to make the return on investment for all of this good for everybody? And obviously, New Mexico wants the water, but obviously there's a cost to that. What's a break even, or what nut does have to be cracked?
The cost of the treatment is really the biggest thing right now. The technology is there to treat the water to usable levels, different levels of quality for different types of uses. But there isn't a pathway to do that yet in New Mexico. There isn't a regulatory pathway to put that water to use outside the oil field at this point.
Okay.
So what the strategic water supply is focused more on brackish water aquifers.
Right. Okay. Chris, you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. And hey, Jonas, welcome to the Water Zone.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome. You bet. And Mr. Hightower, always a welcome to you, sir. Great to have you back as well.
Thank you, Chris.
So listen, man. You bet, Mike. Hey, Jonas, I guess from your first set of statements there, man, there's something for you to do every morning you get up. No moss growing on your feet. Let me ask you a question, because I want to go back to a statement that Rob made when he was doing your introduction. In fact, that I didn't pick this up when he shared your bio with me, that you were with the New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission before. And we had a guest on a while ago that was talking about, how the Indian tribes have been using irrigation canals for a long time. And I see that you worked on the CEQA program and stuff like that. I don't know if you mind doing this, but, was that an interesting part of your career?
Oh, absolutely. New Mexico has such a unique history among all the states, with Santa Fe being the oldest capital
right.
of any of the state capitals. And, the Spanish conquest, coming in the 16th century. So, and bringing with them, approaches that really were similar to what was already here. Puebloan folks were using irrigation ditches to grow really core staple crops like corn, beans, and squash. And the Spanish culture coming over had the acequia influence from Moorish culture. And those ditches are so important to New Mexico's rural communities that are hundreds of years old and rely on subsistence farming a lot of the time to maintain their rural culture and identity. And that's, a lifestyle that is similar to others across the country, but really unique in how we approach it. So the state takes it seriously and places a lot of value in helping to support those communities through programs like the Interstate Stream Commission's acequia program, where they would, do grant awards to make improvements to ditches, to clean ditches out, and make sure they were able to deliver the water that's so necessary. That's the lifeblood of these communities. So it was great to be a part of that.
I was so interested in the subject when we had, and forgive me, I really can't remember the gentleman's name, but he was a university, either of Arizona or New Mexico person we had on, and I'm ashamed of myself if he's listening. But I was just so interested in a question I didn't get answered back then was, the connection between New Mexico's, water is mostly groundwater. I mean, there's not much surface water. So I was trying to kind of figure what the connection, how they got groundwater, or was there enough surface water, and did this, acequia systems, they work on surface water? Jonas, do you know that?
They're usually, they're surface water fed systems. Okay. They're usually higher elevation, small valleys in New Mexico's northern mountains. We do have a number of acequias in drier parts of the state, though, that make really, creative uses of how they get those limited surface water supplies to where they need them to irrigate their crops. They, a lot of the time, are dry most of the year, but then we do different releases at different times to make sure that those farther downstream get their needs.
All right. Hey, great. I'm
of course,
one more
those
question.
water supplies are declining.
Yeah. Right. One more quick thing, then I'll throw it back to either Mike or Rob to ask you a question. But back in the beginning of the year, we had Mike on, and we were talking about Mexico's 50-year water action plan. And I'd like to get your take, I think, on the time relevance to that. I mean, 50 years is a long way out, right? And as Mike, I think you mentioned last time, you're probably not going to be around in 50 years from now. I know I most certainly won't. What's your viewpoint, really, Jonas, on the on the 50-year goal of looking out 50 years? I think it's relevant, so don't get me wrong, and I'd just like to get your take.
No, I appreciate that, and it goes to, I think, New Mexico's approach of thinking long term a lot of the time, and then the people who've been here for a long time thinking in timescales that we don't often think about, and that's hundreds or thousands of years even. And so 50 years is pretty close, it feels like, to a lot of us. But it also helps us kind of make realistic, strategic, and tactical decisions in how we tackle these problems. Knowing that we expect to have 25% less water in the next 50 years helps us work towards that goal in a strategic way rather than trying to come up with a plan in 10 years. If we can, address 0.5% of our water needs per year for 50 years, then we're going to be able to deal with that reduction in supply a lot more realistically and a lot more successfully than if we wait to take it on. So the decline in supplies is happening now. We've been seeing it for the last 25 years, but it's going to continue, and we want to be ready for it. So we've got parts of this plan that address conserving our water, and that's through things like supporting fallowing when appropriate, It includes things like helping local water systems deal with their leaks, which New Mexico Environment Department has made some really cool advancements on, and we might want to talk to you all about some other time in terms of how we are working with a company to use satellite images to identify where there are higher likelihoods of leaks, and then sending out teams to identify those leaks, dig them up and fix them, and save hundreds of thousands of gallons a year. We are also working on water protection because the less water we have, the more important it is to protect that water quality. So we're doing that through things like a new bill we passed this year to require state permitting of waters that are no longer protected by federal law. And then lastly, the third leg of that 50-year water action plan is finding new supplies. And that's where the strategic water supply comes in. So, it just goes to our focus on the future and how we both maintain but also grow. And Mike, I'll kick it over to you if you have anything more to say on the time frame of that 50-year water plan, because I know you were involved in it too.
No, I think that it is important to maybe bring up culturally within some of the Native American communities in New Mexico. They plan water around not your generation or your grandchildren's generation, but the grandchildren of your grandchildren, and so they're looking out 5 generations, 6 generations, which is 150 years. So some of the planning that we see that people are interested in are the long-term planning. The native tribes, the older generations that have been here since the 1500s and 1600s that are planning that. So I think long-term planning is something that is kind of, I don't think unique to New Mexico, but definitely in the DNA of a lot of people here. And I think that that's one of the things that, as we try to move toward these non-traditional water resources to supplement freshwater supplies, it's going to take some time to get people on board to prove that the treatment is going to be effective and safe. And so I think it's perfect for the governor and her team now to say, let's take this on now. It's going to be a while. We can't wait for 40 years and then say we're going to do this in the last 10 years. We've got to start conditioning people to understand that how do we do that safe? How do we do it appropriately? How do we do it cost effectively? Bringing in what we're seeing is public-private partnerships that Jonas talked about. Industry is interested in participating. All of their workers, need fresh water. So industry is interested in putting funding in to maintain good economic development and growth for the citizens of the state. And then the state's putting money up to support communities in working with industry to put these ideas into projects. And I think Jonas mentioned it. If we start now, a little bit at a time, start new projects, new concepts around desalination, new concepts around treating and reusing both industrial and municipal wastewaters. Over the course of the next 10 years, we're going to be a lot smarter. And then we can kind of ramp that up and accelerate that over the next several decades to really be able to address these long-term shortages that we're expecting based upon current climate modeling and use modeling. So I think that it's something that other states are beginning to look at. I know Texas is looking at it, Colorado. They're in that concept of moving toward these non-traditional waters and looking at it differently. I know that USCPA has their program, their national program doing that. So I don't think it's too early to get started. And I'm very pleased that the state of New Mexico has picked that up and is trying to move and has a strategic plan in place that's long-term. I think it's going to be good for all of us. And maybe other states can look at what we're doing and learn from that and see how that goes and look at the legislation and what's needed from a public-private partnerships to move forward. So those are kind of my comments, Chris and Rob, on the work that Jonas kind of helped lead over the last couple of years. And I hope the state will continue to fund additional efforts and would start this moving forward over the next several years.
Well, without water, they're not going to go too long. So
they're not going to go very far. You're right, Rob.
Question: I won't get too deep into the weeds on
Right.
technical stuff since I'm an engineer and I ask those kind of questions. But Chris and I had a lot of different companies come on our show over the past couple of years, and especially recently in companies that make filters for trying to purify the water. And there's arguments in the industry which is a better filter, do this and that, and people are pushing carbon ones. But carbon filters have a problem. Well, what do you do with them when they're used up? Where do you put them? Those are issues. Is there going to be enough fight in whatever regulation comes out to start pushing to get, again, more funding like you talked about, so there can be more scientific research done on the filtering process? And it's like, what do you do with the brackish water? Is there a way to do something out of it? And people use algae bloom, which is not good for you, but they make perfume out of it and deodorant and all kinds of other things. I mean, is there an effort? Is there someone running a department within New Mexico? And I wouldn't know what the name of that department would be, but to look outside the box at these things. Yeah, this is great. It's going to purify this, but we've got a problem. What do we do with it when it's done? You can't just toss this filter away.
Right.
So is somebody looking outside the box on those kind of things and driving the technology? Because there's a lot of companies like you guys both said that are participating and want to do and really partner up. But is that being driven by more of the state or individual companies who want to push their products on you? I guess is the way to say that.
Okay. A couple of things there, Rob. One is anytime you're doing non-traditional waters and you're doing desal, like brackish water or desal for produced water, or taking constituents out of industrial wastewaters, you're going to have a concentrate, and you're going to have chemicals that you're going to have to reuse and try to put to a beneficial use. And that is a big issue within the industry and within the research community of how do you recycle those minerals? How do you reuse those minerals? How do you reduce the amount of concentrate? How do you handle that? A lot of people are talking about a circular economy for water where those chemicals are now reused within the water industry for softening and other things. So there's a lot of interest in that. And as part of that, the circular economy that people are talking about includes the waste streams from the treatment. So the waste the membranes, when they're used up, how do you recycle those? How do you reuse those? So the circularity concept is now, I think, pretty common within the water industry to try and make sure that you're not doing something that's so bad that it's not sustainable long term.
Yeah, you solve one problem and then you get another one, and that's what nobody wants, and that's the hard part. Has New Mexico looked into, because we also had a lot of different companies come in and talk about atmosphere water harvesting? Is that a feasible effort to do?
By that, like cloud seeding?
Yeah, I'll let Jonas.
Yes, cloud seeding.
The water plant. Yeah.
Yeah, cloud seeding is one thing, but they have these devices or these machines, and several companies are doing it, and they're doing a lot with the government and the military and for emergency things, where they put these machines out in the middle of the area, and it collects water out of that, or makes water out of the atmosphere. And there's some things going on in Africa. And I know the U.S. military is doing something. I didn't know that's something that New Mexico is looking at it, because you really don't get a whole lot of rain, I don't think. And if it does, it either runs off or goes into the ground. I mean, that's pretty much, you got it better than Los Angeles has it, I can tell you that. Everything in Los Angeles just goes through the sewers. But are they looking at other things besides that? I mean, all this brackish is that's pretty predominant in the petroleum business. Is there any other type as far as the brackish aquifers? Are there many located in that state? And is there heavy salinity?
There are brackish waters all around the state, and really a huge range of salinity. The strategic water supply is, for that reason, applicable to anything with 1,000 TDS or higher. Okay. So we are open to, some water that's pretty easily treatable, and to more complicated situations, depending on what might be available to a community around the state. And again, we have our Bureau of Geology working on that. In terms of atmospheric harvesting, I don't think we have anything at scale, but there is research work going on at universities across our state. I would also say that there has been cloud seeding efforts in New Mexico. We like a lot of Western states are looking at whatever sources we might be able to tap. I was just at a Colorado River meeting, and we were talking about that just the other night at dinner. To your other point, though, about and Mike's point about a circular economy, we are looking towards our neighbors in Texas and El Paso, where they have the K. Bailey Hutchinson desal plant, and they have a partnership with Critical Materials Corporation to recover minerals from their wastewater. So to minimize that waste and make it more of a circular economy.
Yeah, and then the profits can go back into more research, I think. That would be a great idea to do. Actually, Chris, any follow-up questions you may have?
I just got a quick one, and maybe Mike or Jonas, you can answer this. But who are your constituents? Who do you help? Your customers, if you will. Is it public water systems, water utility operators? Who are they?
Yeah, it's definitely public water systems. At the Water Protection Division, we regulate water quality and surface water and groundwater, but we also regulate and support public water systems. In terms of the strategic water supply, we want to partner with public systems or private companies who are looking to grow in New Mexico's communities.
And if we have listeners who want to find out more, Jonas or Mike, where can they go? Where can they get some more information? Websites, maybe?
Websites, absolutely. The New Mexico Environment Department has a web page dedicated to the strategic water supply. It's a long URL, dmv.nm.gov/strategic water supply, but the easiest way to find it is to Google NMED strategic water supply or even NMED SWS, and it'll get you there.
Great, appreciate it. Well, Jonas, I wish we had more time to cover a whole bunch of more topics. I'm not an expert in anything that you're talking about, but I am very much interested in processes and how they work and everything comes together. And we certainly want water. I mean, last thing Chris and I tell everybody on the show is, please help keep our planet green, because if you like blue, you gotta have both to make it happen. So we do appreciate you guys coming on, and best of luck on some of the projects you're doing. We're going to go research some more, and we'd love to have you back in the next couple of months and talk about where you are and what's new in your world. So again, thanks to both of you. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you hopefully in maybe 60, 90 days again.
Thank you very much. Great. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you. All right,
guys.
Well, Chris, that was pretty interesting, and I love listening to this stuff. To me, it's better than reading a novel. I'd rather hear the science facts, but that's me. I'm just a nerd.
You're an engineer, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I'm just a nerd.
I didn't say nerd. I said engineer. So.
Hey, I don't have Scotch tape around my rims of my glasses in the middle, so I'm okay.
That's right. And a pen sleeve in your pocket. All right. Well, we got to go. Give it up to NBC for their news hour, but I'll get back and touch with you, Rob, pretty soon, and for our listeners. Thanks for sticking with us, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Have a good week. Good night, everybody.